This week we're doing The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides. I'm Sarah Lyles.
And I'm Jamie Livingston, and we are so approachable. The Silent Patient is a shocking psychological thriller of a woman's act of violence against her husband and the therapist obsessed with uncovering her motive. Dun, dun, dun.
And there's a lot going on.
There is a ton going on in this book, so I really don't even know where to start with this. I know we asked our readers to keep track of when they think they figured out the ending, so I am curious if you have like a page number or a point in the book as to when you kind of figured out or you were suspicious. But there are a ton of characters and a lot happening. Where do you want to start?
I don't know. I mean, the biggest thing is kind of knowing some of the big characters, right? So Alicia Berenson, she's the biggest character, obviously, the main character.
The quietest.
The silent one, yes. I mean, but yet she's so quiet. There's so much about her in the beginning and then even throughout her diary, which kind of expels a lot of things and pulls a lot in there.
What did you think about the diary? Because that was an interesting way. I know in our TLDR episode, I had asked, how are we going to get her side of the story if she's not talking? And so this diary she left behind, and it's all the stuff leading up to when she murdered her husband. So we do get her voice to a certain extent. Was that helpful?
It was. It was very helpful. Getting that backstory was super helpful. It kind of tied a lot of the questions I had of like what was going on, why was this going on, where did these people come from? It really did help. What did you think?
I liked those entries because I was so curious as to what was going on with her. So any glimpse inside of her brain was helpful. I thought it was interesting that at the very beginning, they told you that she killed her husband. Did you believe that? Or were you suspicious that she had been framed? Or did you question that?
I think only because if you go back and listen to the TLDR, there's a lot of in the reviews, wait, what? What's going on? I'm confused. It made me go, okay, so maybe she didn't. Maybe there's more to that. Had I not read those reviews, I think I would have gone, yeah, she killed him.
That is one thing that I want to talk about is that because everybody said the twist they didn't see coming whatsoever, it blew them out of the water, that made me be a much more critical reader. Mm-hmm. And so I was second guessing everybody. Maybe I was just putting on my Sarah hat and my big girl pants and trying to figure this one out. But I feel like maybe putting so much emphasis on the fact that it came out of nowhere detracted from my reading because I was too focused on trying to figure it out.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It does.
Because I feel like if somebody would have said it's just a good thriller, I would have just read it and not been trying to figure out what everybody was bamboozled by.
Absolutely. I do think sometimes that doesn't help us. It doesn't help my thoughts in reading it and just enjoying it instead of going, okay, my mystery hat is really on. I want to know who it is because everyone was stumped. I don't want to be like them.
Right. So then we meet Theo, and Theo is our narrator for most of this. What'd you think of Theo? Because he's the psychiatrist or psychotherapist, and he's the official. He's the expert in this. He's coming to analyze why she's not speaking and trying to get her to talk again. But he's a very interesting character.
To say the least. I think I started to really question why his history mattered so much. Why am I learning so much about him when it's not about him, that somehow that has to tie in together because there has to be that. What did you think?
I wrote the exact same thing down in my notes. I was like, is this book more about him than her? I'm so confused right now.
Yeah.
It felt very out of place. So what you just said was so smart.
Well, because why would they put all his information? Why did that matter? Why do I care about Theo, who's not even the silent patient? Right. So it had to be
and
somewhere.
His relationships and how he met his wife and why he's out smoking pot. It was why am I learning about this guy?
Right.
He's got to be more important.
Right. And did you feel like he was reliable as a narrator?
No. He was our expert. And so I felt like I was supposed to be able to trust him. But he did flip-flop a lot. And just the things that he said, I mean, he even said at the very beginning that he crossed the line in one of the sessions, and that was one of the first, or it set a precedent for his relationship with Alicia. And so you could tell right then and there that his doctor-patient was not going to...
It's bedside manner, right.
It was not going to follow the rules.
Right.
And so the fact that as the book progresses, he turns into more of a detective than a therapist or a psychotherapist, and he's actually going and investigating this, which is beyond the scope of what he should have been doing. And so it was very strange.
Did you ever think, like, why is he so obsessed with her? And because to me, it looked like an obsession. Like, he was like, had to know, I want to know. It felt like an obsession. Did you ever question that?
I thought that it would be for notoriety, for him to be able to write the book, for him to be the psychotherapist that solved the problem, because this was a really big, I can picture it as this big news story. You're talking about a famous fashion photographer and a painter and this crazy story. I can see it being in the news cycle and him wanting to get the gold star for being the best therapist out there.
I didn't think of it that way, and that's probably like your news background
Yeah.
coming out, right? So yeah, I could see that.
So there was just something there, but I will say that I wasn't questioning him until part 4.
Yeah.
And that's when we can talk about the timelines in this book, because Alicia in her journal takes us back in time.
Right.
And so those are dated, and we know that that's a step back in time. And then the rest of it is coming from Theo. And it seems like it's all happening at the same time. But farther down the road, we realize that these timelines are not on the same path,
right.
and these things aren't happening at the same time. So that's where he's a very unreliable narrator. But I just remember in part 4, like I marked it down, part 4, chapter 5, I was like, wait a sec. How is he able to do all of this at the same time?
Right.
Like, he's stalking this person. Meanwhile, he's working extra hours. And like, how is this? It didn't add up in my brain. And so that was my first red flag to Theo.
Right. So is that when you pinpointed?
Oh, I didn't have any idea. But that was the first time where I was like, no, I don't trust what he's saying.
Yeah.
And it feels like these are going to intersect. And so I was questioning if he's stalking somebody, like maybe that was the case with Alicia. Another question I came across was, did you actually think Alicia was being stalked?
I did. Only because I read in there like how she had a lot of like thinking in her mental. Like I thought, okay, she might be a little crazy. She might actually be like making up this person, but there's got to be more to that, because she didn't just like explain like, oh, someone's stalking me. It felt like she really had someone stalking her. And then she had that picture, which I know it was blurry. You could only see like a gray figure, but I mean, I felt like it was. Did you?
I don't know. I mean, I definitely questioned it, and I think you're also led to question it because Theo kind of downplays it.
Right.
Or
Well, of course he does.
Right. But it also reminded me of the housemaid and the fact that she's being put through these therapy sessions with someone who's not actually trying to treat her and is just saying like, no, you're crazy, you're crazy, you're crazy, take these drugs and you'll be fine. And so she wasn't crazy. She was actually seeing somebody following her.
Right.
And so it was kind of that vibe of she's being watched and everybody thinks she's nuts. And in her journal entries, she kept saying things like, I'm not going to talk about that, or I'm crazy, but my mom was crazy. We go back to her childhood.
Right. Her childhood is really, do you think in a childhood that really that can stem and change how you are as an adult as far as like your mental capacity, your emotional abilities? I mean, it does shape the way you think. It does shape like kind of you do have traumas from it.
Absolutely. I mean, the trauma that she's really... Her mom tried to kill them.
Yes.
Car crash, mom died, she lived. And then she witnesses her dad saying, I wish my daughter would have died and my wife would have stayed alive. That's awful.
Awful.
Awful. And then to have to live with that person. And so you're not in like a safe space.
No, you don't trust him either. I could never, ever trust him after thinking He just wants me dead.
But to counter that, it plays into this Greek tragedy, the Greek myth of Alcestis. And we can kind of go into that and how it factored into this book. I thought there was a lot of Greek references and things that may have gone over my head a little.
Yeah, I agree.
But I feel like the trauma from that, of her dad killing her,
Right.
was maybe a little extreme.
Sure.
I mean, as a little girl, I don't know, maybe she wouldn't have actually thought that deeply about it, or
Right. Maybe.
like, I don't know. I felt it was a stretch.
I mean, her perception of it might have been so different than what the reality was. And so having someone else kind of play through things too, I mean, it changes a lot, right?
Well, it also was buried deep. So that wasn't something that
Was right up
she
forefront.
dwelled on necessarily. And so the actual incident, the night where she kills her husband, is when that memory is brought back to the surface.
Right.
And it was interesting. I think I put it in my notes. She talks about how she smells jasmine while she's in her living room,
Right.
and like in this weird torturous, like, I'm about to be killed or
Yes, I'm
killed.
about to die. Right, yes.
And she's smelling jasmine, and it was jasmine that she could smell from the rooftop where she witnessed her dad say those things about her. And so it was taking her back to that repressed memory.
Of course.
And so those two moments kind of came together. So that was an interesting perspective for me.
Yeah, and I can see that to where, I mean, really, do smells take you back? I mean, smells take me back to memories that it's like, wow, that smell. I mean, I think of like things like strawberry shortcake. That is like a memory and a smell that really brings you back to a moment, whether it's a good moment or a bad moment. For her, it wasn't a good moment. And so you're going through all these things.
Yeah, I think she talked about the smells that reminded her of her mom, and she smelled Theo.
Yeah.
That was one of the reasons that she like believed it was him when she saw him at the Grove.
Yes.
She recognized him by the smell.
Which is funny because she took out one of her senses of speaking, right? And like her ability to communicate that way. And so she really tuned in. And obviously she had a fine tune of her sense of smell. Okay, so speaking of Theo, I just am curious to hear your perspective. Theo was determined to work with her. It was like, to me, an obsession. Like he was, I'm going to work with her. What did you see as why Theo was so determined to work with her?
I think he just wanted the fame.
That's
I mean, well, from the outside, I mean, at the end, maybe it's a very different, but at the onset of the book, it definitely was for the fame. But at the end, it's very twisted.
Yeah.
Like, was he trying to...
silence her?
Right. I mean, clearly he tries to kill her.
Right. Yes.
To silence her.
Yes.
And so did he want to prove? Well, I think it may come because he maintains that he didn't mean to kill anyone.
Right.
So he left the house without killing anyone. So I think the question is better phrased as, is Theo responsible for Gabriel's death? Because he's trying to prove that he's not. And so if he can find out why she's been silent and why she actually killed her husband, then he can relieve himself of that guilt.
Yeah.
Did he feel guilt or remorse? I don't think so. But I think that's where he was trying to level the scales there.
Yeah, that makes sense. I could see that. I mean, for me, I was like, okay, he wants to know that she's never going to speak. Like in that, at the very beginning, I had a serious think of like, okay, Theo, why are you so obsessed? And it felt to me like, it was like, I'm going to work with her. I'm going to work, like, be her doctor. It is this. And then when he tried to get her, and when he did, he was successful in talking to her like one-on-one with no one there. I was like, what is he trying to get out of her that he doesn't want anybody else to hear? So that's where I was like, okay, Theo, I got an eye on you.
Well, and it is strange that he's trying to get her to talk
Yeah.
when really he needs her to stay silent.
Yes. That's true. I didn't think of it that way.
But I think it is because he's confused I mean, he says, I never thought Alicia would kill Gabriel. Never. I just wanted to show her. Didn't know her family history, or he wouldn't have pushed her. And so the fact that it comes back to this Greek tragedy and it came up with this repressed memory, that's what he's trying to get at, because he didn't actually want to kill anybody. And then he says he did it all for his wife, and he ended up losing her too, which is a very strange dynamic. What did you think about that relationship?
The emails, the very graphic emails, and how she became like, all of a sudden her computer was out and open. That felt very like, almost like she wanted him to read them, wanted him to find out. There was a lot in that I was like, why are you doing anything for that woman? Like, again, I saw him with a person that had a serious problem with obsession. So being obsessed with his wife too would fall in line with that.
Well, and we learn a lot about his childhood and his issues, because he is a very flawed character. He goes to his own therapist. What did you think about Ruth and his relationship with Ruth? Because it also felt like a very strange dynamic. I don't know, she felt very motherly, where maybe he did not want to be by his parents. And so this was a motherly figure that was bestowing advice and helping take away his pain and working through the problems. But he kind of makes it sound like she failed as a therapist because she wasn't able to fix him.
Well, or do you see it as that he didn't want to be fixed?
Yeah.
Or that he didn't trust anyone who was a motherly figure, and that even they were trying to love you or not love you. And it was like, you don't care about me. And I didn't see that he wanted to be fixed.
But what did you think about him running to Ruth when this kind of all happened and he needed to talk to somebody?
Right.
Like, that seemed like the strangest. It felt like they hadn't talked in years, and he's just going and knocking on her door, like demanding help from this old woman.
I think he must have had a sense of trust in her. I mean, even if he didn't want to be fixed, right? Or even if he didn't want to hear it, he needed trust. And so it's like, oh, no, I don't want to hear it. But at one moment when he is lacking and needing help, it's like, I got to run to the one person who I trust. And she has shown that she's trustworthy and that she does try to care for him.
Yeah. That just felt like a very strange dynamic. And she did have a good statement about love. It was something along the lines of, love that doesn't include honesty doesn't deserve to be called love. And I feel like I was like, whoa, that's deep, Ruth.
Yeah.
Okay. But I agree. I mean, you can't have dishonesty in a relationship.
No.
That's not loving.
Right.
Love is honest.
Right.
And so he was guilty of not being honest with his wife, and his wife was not being honest with him. And so that's where I don't think he necessarily fessed up to his dishonesty and the obsession, and it just all snowballed and was ugly.
Well, yeah, and the thing about honesty, it's like, how much do you love someone or care about them if you can't be honest with them? Even if it's like brutally honest, which sometimes that's hurtful, but at the same time, you love them so much, they should be able to say, I know you don't mean that in a mean way. I know you're just doing it because you care about me and love me. And so I feel like her statement was really a good, deep statement.
So at the end of the book, when we're at Theo's house with Kathy, what did you think about that dynamic and how she was like lethargic and withdrawn and just sitting down to watch TV? I was very confused by it. Did you understand what was happening?
So through the whole book, I liked the pace of the book. Like, it had a good pace, it had the pretty consistent pace. And I felt like the end of the book, I was like, what just happened? And so that part right there, I was like, wait, what is she like high over there, drugged up? Like, what is going on? I mean, I was confused.
But he said that the doctors were recommending drugs, and he said, no, it needs to be talk therapy. And so I thought she was drugged up for sure. And so I thought that was kind of like his prescription. Like, that's how he remedied the situation. My other thought was she just depressed from Gabriel being killed? And he talks about it kind of being a dance, because when he brings up that Alicia Berenson was his patient and is like, she's accused of killing, and she doesn't acknowledge it at all, and it was kind of like a cat and mouse game, and that neither of them have acknowledged that they know that they know.
Yes.
Does that make
Yes,
sense?
it makes
Like, it's
sense.
just a strange, like, limbo land. And so
It was a strange limbo. Like, there are parts that I almost want to deep dive, and maybe I need to just like go deep dive and be like, can you explain the ending a little bit more? Because maybe our listeners, if you do, please help me out, because I was a bit confused at the end. Like, okay, what just happened here, and what am I missing? Because it did feel like I was missing something.
So because we said at the very top that there's a lot going on, and I feel like a lot of it, again, went over my head, maybe because I'm not a psychoanalyst, and this is all very deep and dark and like spooky thoughts. And so it's hard to be in this person's head. Mm-hmm. But
well, and
there's a lot.
We never get into Kathy's mind. We don't see things from her perspective. And so it's hard to understand. I think that's what the point that maybe I'm missing, like her perspective. Like, how did she see things? And so how did it get to that point? You know, there's a little bit of that backstory we don't know. And so maybe that's why I felt like I was confused.
That could be. I guess we haven't even talked about the fact that Theo is the bad guy. Spoiler alert, if you've gotten this far. When did you figure this out? Did you figure it out? Did it surprise you? I'll say that it was up until like the last second before he said, and that was the first time I saw Alicia Berenson face to face. Like, that like pulled me in, and I was like, oh, yep, it was him. Up until the last second, I was team Diomedes.
I didn't even think of him, actually, to be honest.
Really?
With you. Nope.
Oh
Didn't
my
even look at
goodness.
him as a red flag. I just thought of him like, okay, he's like, you know, the head of the grove. He's just this guy that's, you know, got some weird things about him, but
Right, he kind of felt like the creepy staff member, but
that
was
too
in charge.
obvious. But it was too obvious.
Yes, but there were so many Greek references, which could just be from the author's
Correct.
wheelhouse. Like,
Right.
that's whatever. But Diomedes is a very clearly Greek last name, and there were just all these things, and I felt like that was maybe not a subtle push toward him, but there clearly at the end, the author is trying to raise suspicion about him, because at the end
course.
he wasn't there. Oh, and he was there earlier in the day, and so did he take off? And like, there was a lot riding on this patient, and he had already failed with her, and so I don't know. I was guessing, but I said I was suspicious of Theo. I just didn't have any idea how it was actually going to weave together.
Right.
So I was Diomedes. Who else did you suspect beyond Theo?
I mean, again, I wondered the whole time, every time we got Theo's history, I was like, okay, again, what does his relationship have to do with hers? And then the timeline of like both spouses being, you know, great spouses made me go, all right, there's something we're missing that we're not going to find out till later. And so Diomedes, again, to me was too obvious. It was like, meh, not him. I've had a red flag on Theo for a lot. And really, I know that a lot of people were stumped on it, but he was my top three. Okay, so I would be like, okay, he's definitely top three. And then I thought, maybe for 1 second, like, all right, there's got to be someone else. Like, are they going to introduce someone else that wasn't there? Who's the guy that's lurking, you know, in the background? So there was sometimes.
There was Max, Yuri. There was also Jean-Felix.
Yeah, true. Yes.
There's several people.
Right.
The brother-in-law, Max.
Didn't like him.
No, hated him. Sleazeball.
I mean,
Yeah.
he could have been.
Well, right. And I think that he really was put in there as just kind of a,
Yeah.
maybe you should suspect him.
Yeah. But I didn't like him at all. So is there any part of it, like his whole story, like it's not relevant, really?
No, we could pull those pages out.
Yeah, and
Don't
I'm
need
just
them.
like, I know she was trying to, or he was trying to pull in different people to like, okay, throw in different suspects. But I would say probably by like part 2, I was like, oh, it's probably Theo. And I mean, I'm glad to know that you felt like our listeners that recommended this were like, oh, we didn't know until the very end. So I'm so glad. But again, I think had I not read those reviews and had that back history, I think I would have not suspected him as much.
Who else could we have suspected? There was also Christian who worked there, and he was the therapist who had been treating Alicia, a friend of her husband's, something along those lines. So there was kind of that sneaky vibe thrown in.
For a little bit, I actually wondered if he committed suicide too. I was like, oh, maybe he just said, I'm done with this. And, because there's no telling.
Shot
she's
himself
not
5
talking.
times?
I mean, once, that's true. But, really, I was thinking, there's got to be, the whole time I was like, there's got to be more to this. There's got to be more. There's got to be more. And so the other people, yes. But it was like,
Well, right. The note of like, is this book actually about him and not about her? Because there was so much about Theo and his trauma and issues. There was so much that I couldn't figure out what even to separate. And he was so unreliable.
Yes.
I mean, that's where I'm at
and
a
there was
loss.
things that were thrown in there that felt irrelevant. Like, what was it, like the snow or something? And I was like, okay.
So that is actually interesting because I started picking up on all of these weather hints. And so I have notes throughout my pages of, hey, they reference snow. And that was another thing because Diomedes predicted
seasons?
Snow.
Oh, yeah.
At one point, he predicted it was going to snow. And Theo said, that doesn't look like snow. Those are rain clouds. And I was like, that was one of the reasons why I was shifting toward Diomedes because it felt like the weather was factoring into this somehow. And it did. I had to go and read some analysis on this to get some smarter people's perspective.
Smarter people. You're super intelligent. I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, I needed to know if I was crazy because I had noticed several things about the snow and people didn't disappoint. There was a lot of information.
Oh, now I'm curious. What did you find?
Oh my goodness. There's so much about snow. In Alex Michaelides' novel, The Silent Patient, snow symbolizes the great difficulty of finding peace and happiness after childhood trauma. Oh. At the beginning, Theo describes a fleeting moment of joy amidst his father's abuse. While he was away and his mom was asleep, he snuck out during a snowstorm and caught snowflakes. Somehow, grasping at vanishing snowflakes is like grasping at happiness, he reflects, an act of possession that instantly gives way to nothing. And so there's several other references. In an interview, he said he likes to use weather. He was inspired by Shakespeare to communicate interior life and emotion. So it was only fitting that snow plays a similar function throughout the novel. When he arrives at the grove, his colleague, Diomedes, constantly predicts snow, as well as a couple other characters say, oh, it looks like it's going to snow. Oh, man, I wish it would just snow already. And so it's hinting at his quest for happiness, but it never comes until the very end when he's caught. Mm-hmm. He says, oh, look, it's snowing. And he opens the window and grabs at snowflakes.
Yeah.
And so that was like his quest for joy in all of this was for nothing.
Right.
And like throughout the entire process, it's fleeting. He can't grab it at all.
Right.
And then at the very end, when he's caught, is when the snow falls.
And doesn't it go in there? I believe I remember something about him having a happy memory in his history, like because of snow. And
right, that was when his dad was gone. Right. He went out, I don't think he made a snowman fully, but he was catching snowflakes.
Did something with the snow. And so like having those happy memories, and then like to me, I'm like, so that just made you so happy.
Right. So weather factored in. That's why I'm saying like there was so much like high level intelligent things happening here. There was another point where he is the one who tied up Alicia with her own art supplies.
Yeah.
Like it was her wire for hanging paintings that they were bound up with. And so it is weaponizing her creative outlet that brings her comfort and peace and security. And so like there's just these big ideas and add to the trauma.
She also, stabbed someone in the eye with a paintbrush, and so so there was like all of that too. And so you go in there going, yes. And so I saw that going, oh, okay.
Going back to the actual scene where Theo takes Alicia captive,
right?
And then her husband, did you think, as you were working out your theory of him being a schmuck, did you think that he killed Gabriel or that Alicia did it?
I think Alicia did it. I think somehow I was like, she did it. I really did think she did it.
Okay.
What did you think?
I definitely had the tension of somebody else did it, and for some reason she was taking the fall. It's like there had to be something about him that made her stay silent.
But why would she go quiet? Do they have something against her? Is that what you're trying to think?
I don't know.
Because to me, if she did it, it would be like a trauma response of going silent because she did something so drastic. That's how I saw it. Like, I just killed him, and so she's doing something so drastic. She's going into all these psycho, like, analysis, and people are trying to figure out, well, I shouldn't say people, Theo is trying to like make her talk, and as you look at it that he's trying, but really we later to find out like it wasn't just I'm trying to figure out what do you know or how can I help you. It's like, how do I keep you quiet?
So maybe we should talk about why did Alicia kill her husband? Because that is, we talked about the whole Alcestis thing.
Right, yes.
We can actually dive into that because I have a brief synopsis of what that actually means. It was a Greek myth. Alcestis sacrifices her life for that of her husband by dying in his place. It's a myth of self-sacrifice, and she ends up being returned and rescued from Hades, but she never speaks again. Basically, the story is that her husband was told he can die or she can die. Somebody can die in his place.
Right.
And he's like, no, somebody else can die in my place.
He pretty much, he flat out says, I don't want to die.
Right.
And so it's like, as this countdown's going on, could you imagine like that feeling? Like, okay, I'm not going to die.
Right.
Especially since you just basically said, go ahead and kill her without saying it. And she does ask him to, like, say you love me. Like, I love you.
Had Theo said that he was cheating before that, or was that after? I feel like it was after because she was still like, say you love me, or like, he's going to kill us both. Just, like, don't believe him. And so I think it was after he said, I don't want to die. And he's like, see, he was messing around with my wife. And
yes. Well, and because he does go back and say, like, see, I know what kind of man he was. He basically this horrible man.
Right. And so that scene is interesting because she says, and so I stayed quiet. And he was yelling for her because he thought that Alicia died. Mm-hmm. Gabriel heard the gun go off, and then she was silent. But she was silent because his answer was shock. Crap.
Wouldn't you I wouldn't know what to say.
Right. It pulled up that repressed memory. She's smelling jasmine and is like, you just killed me too. I loved that quote because it said, I didn't kill Gabriel. The truth is, he killed me. All I did was pull the trigger.
That's big.
Wow.
Yes. And really thinking about that, like his words, right? And were powerful, as little as they were. I think it was 3 words? No, a few words. I don't want to die. Yeah, 5 words. And so knowing that says a lot.
Can you imagine staying silent in that moment? Because that was even because Theo fires the gun into the air. So yes. Gabriel thinks that she's been shot.
Makes sense.
But Alicia's sitting there and she's seeing what's happening. And Theo winks at her and
tells her to be quiet.
Tells her to be quiet. And so she stays quiet and he's screaming Like, they're tied up back to back, so he
Right,
can't see
her.
anything.
Right.
And screaming because he thinks she's dead.
Mm-hmm.
And she's left to just think about the fact that he would have rather she died than him.
I think I'd be lost for words.
Right.
I mean, what do you say, like, to this man that you thought loved you? And
the book, it just said, like, and so I stayed quiet. And then I pointed the gun at him, and I stayed quiet. And he tried to get me to say something, and I just stayed quiet. And then I shot him 5 times, and I just stayed quiet. Oh, my goodness.
well, and really, you think about that, like, she's got to be so hurt. Like, this is not done to her just once. It was done to her again. And so having that childhood trauma, and then it's like, here we go again. Wow.
Do you think she survives?
Do I think she survived? Yeah, I do. I did. I thought she did. Did you?
They had said that she was, like, on life support
Right.
and had very little odds of coming back. So that was a downer.
Right, yes.
Did you think that Theo would be caught?
I thought he was going to get away with it.
Really?
So I thought, like, oh, he's going to get away with this. Like, even though, like, really, you think about, like, law terms, right? Because it's coming from a written diary, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, okay, how much evidence is this? Because it's someone's perspective, right? I don't know. I did. What did you think?
I think I have more faith in humanity, and, like, I need the justice.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I'm an Enneagram 1. I need justice.
It's the newscaster in you going, I need them to take down the bad guy because that's what's important. And I don't know. I just was like, he's going to get away with this, and she maybe's going to live.
Can you imagine if the book ended and he was just riding off scot-free, though? That's not a book ending. You can't do that.
I mean, maybe.
Your books, okay. Got it. Not reading what you're writing. I need that ending. So I saw somebody's question online where it asked, if she was really drugged and, like, on the verge of a coma, how is she able to write that last entry, and how is she able to hide the journal? Like, she may have been able to, like, finish writing out a couple sentences, but hiding it where nobody would be able to find it right away?
No. That's why, I don't know. That's why I saw, like, how, like, out is she of it? Because she's still, like, actually doing stuff. It's not like she's just...
Right.
Totally a vegetable.
Yeah. So that, I don't know, somebody might call that a plot hole, but
maybe.
I thought it was great that she was able to have that big reveal. What did you think? When did Alicia realize who Theo was?
When did I think?
In the book.
Oh, yes.
When did Alicia?
Looking back, right? I look back at it different than when I was in it. So if I looked back at it, I was like, did she recognize him? Like, is there something that, like, when he came in, did she recognize him right away?
Yes.
Now, like, that's what I'm saying, like, looking back.
It says that in the book. So
Yes.
in that, like, last journal entry or where she's explaining
right.
everything, she does.
But
so
I mean...
the first time he walks in,
right.
she feels it. Like, she can sense it. And then in their first session, or, like, the first time he talks to her, he says the same words that he said to her when he was tying her up. And it was, I just want you to see. I want you to see clearly. Like, that was something along those lines.
Right.
But that was the phrase that she had said because he was trying to show her that her husband was cheating on her. I just want you to see things clearly. And so he said the same thing in one of their sessions. And that, like, clicked the light bulb. And she recognized his smell.
Well, I'm saying, like, remember when they were, like, in group? Like, when he didn't recognize her and, like, I don't know where she is. That's when I was like, okay, I wonder if, like, because it didn't seem like he was significant there, but to her, but...
He was brand new.
Yeah. But then I'm like, oh, I wonder if that very second she was like...
I think she definitely recognized his voice. Well, and so that is interesting because he was wearing a ski mask, and so it was just the eyes that she recognized. And so,
and the
like,
smell later on. Right. And so to me, then when I'm reading it and thinking, like, okay, at what point did she, like, it's like, oh, okay, she recognized him. Because then I thought, okay, she recognizes him. But then she starts to, like, trust him and do things like, you know, and I'm like, okay.
Like talk?
Like open her mouth or like, and then he's letting her paint or use, I'm like, oh, okay, maybe she doesn't, like going back and forth. So I didn't know. When did you think?
Well, what do you think about the fact that she told him lies? Or like she told him, she asked if she believed that she had a stalker, and he said he believed her, which he was the stalker, so
well, of course
makes
he
sense
believed
that
her.
he believed her. But then she proceeded to tell her events of that night, and she told them incorrectly. And he immediately was like, I don't believe she was telling me the truth. And that should have been the red flag for readers to be like, oh, he doesn't believe it because he was there and did something else.
True.
And so that was interesting to me. And so why do you think that she did lie, knowing that he was there and would know it was a lie?
Well, I mean, think about it. She knew who he was, so why tell the truth? Because he was already there. He knew what happened.
Well, I think that was her way of telling him, like, I know who you are.
Yes. That makes sense.
That is, like, if you're going to question me on this or you're not going to believe me, like, why wouldn't you believe me? I know who you are, brother.
I see that. I mean, if I was like, I know who you are, we're going to go through, like, this is a game to you. I'm going to play your game, and I'm going to give you a story. Maybe you don't like it, but that's probably, in my mind, she's, like, toying with him almost.
Should she have started talking?
I mean...
Like, what would have happened if she just kept her mouth shut?
That's a good question.
Maybe there's a second book, and it's an alternate reality, and she just stays silent forever.
I mean, really.
And that's where he gets off scot-free.
True. Could be. I mean, my whole thing, like, I feel like she started to talk just to mess with him almost. Like, okay, I know who you are. I know what you did. I know what's going on. And then, well, it's like the reason why she was silent. I think I really would love to know kind of a few more perspectives. That's why I feel like I was confused at the end. Like, okay, what was going on in Kathy's mind? Where's a little bit more?
Yeah. But then when you start reading these multiple POV books, then you're really screwed up. And so just the fact that his timeline was interwoven.
Yeah.
Being the author for that, like, that was very cleverly done.
Did you like that?
I mean, I hated it. What are you talking about? I hated it. But he did it really well.
Yes. That, I will say he did go like back and forth and confuse you to think that they were simultaneously like the same time. And then like he did that well. I think he did that really well, but you hated
I found a good description maybe I'm not clearly saying what I am actually thinking, but this was good. The issues come from the timeline, which is not clearly laid out. In several scenes, we see the main character at work, and then in the next chapter, he's out for an evening with Kathy, or he goes home to find she's not home. You assume that this is after the same day's work that we were reading in the previous chapter, but that's not actually the case. Most books on a 2-level timeline will have time references at the beginning of chapters or when there's a switch. This one does not, except for the journal entries. You can see that the patient's storyline flashbacks are going to intersect with current day, but it's the doctor's timeline that is more vague. And so that's where, like, the misdirection with the timestamps on her journal entries, like, it made you think Alex Michaelides is our unreliable narrator, because he's telling us that her timeline is different, therefore implying that this other one, he would have put a timestamp on it if they were out of sync.
True.
Oh, I'm so mad.
True, but I mean, we don't look at that, right? And
Right.
so we follow along.
Blindly and happily, ready for that 5-star review.
Reading along going, okay. But, I mean, that's a really great way to put it all. All right, so we kind of talked about it. I mean, is there anything else that really stood out to you that we didn't hit on, that maybe you're like, I really loved or I really hated this point? I mean...
I think I was trying to make sense of how some of the minor characters could potentially be suspects, and they each had their own things against them. And so I was trying to rule them out. And so looking back, like I went back and reread or re-listened to a lot of this book to see like, where did I go wrong? And I think it was more frustrating the second time through, but it did make a whole lot more sense.
Yeah.
So I recommend for our readers and listeners to go back through it to see how those pieces all intersect, because the timelines are intense. And when you're actually reading it again and you're like, oh, that makes a lot more sense. Like that was 6 years ago when that happened. And I feel like in several of the descriptions of this book, they explained multiple times, like, this happened when she was 33 years old. That was 6 years ago. And he's taking this job at this time. And so I feel like those descriptions were even, like, if you were paying attention, they were putting so much emphasis on the timeline in all of the lead up to the book.
True. And I think if you take your time reading the book, I think that you're able to uncover those versus like speed reading it.
Yes. Although I felt, you said the pacing of this book was okay. I think that the journal entries really helped. But there was a lot of time where I was lost in the sauce of like, why are we learning about this? I'm so confused. Ugh.
Yes. I mean, I felt confused a lot. I mean, even after finishing it, I'm like, I need like just explain the ending. Sometimes you know how like they have like, I don't know, different books that are like, okay, explain the ending. That's what I need. I need someone, and maybe someone that's listening that's a little bit smarter than me can literally explain the endings in a very common sense, dumb it down for me so I can understand, just because I want to know, like, break it down. Break it down for me, because I was a little confused. But yeah.
Any other big takeaways before we jump to our ratings, perhaps?
No, I mean, so what did you think of like the cover, the book?
The cover of the book is creepy. I hate it. It's like a mummy. That's like, because she's got this sheet of like painters. I don't know. I don't like it. It's creepy.
Do you think it ties in with the actual book and the whole overall book?
I think it does the book justice.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
Right. I mean, because it's literally ripping of the mouth of the voice box, almost like in her ability to speak. And so I thought it was good. It is creepy.
And I think it shows maybe that she will speak because it's opening her mouth. I don't know. Maybe we're tearing the mouth away so that she can't speak, or maybe we are actually opening it and we're going to hear her.
True. I mean, that's true. I didn't think of it that way. I thought of it like, let me make sure you...
Well, that would be like putting tape on it or something. I don't know.
Sure.
Fascinating. I enjoyed the descriptions of her paintings along the way, and those were pretty graphic and interesting. And so this kind of has that quality. I don't know.
It's a little spooky. It's fun.
It's very spooky. It feels like she's underwater or like under something. And I think it's more of like a painter's canvas that she's under and like it's being ripped away.
All right, so my 5-star rater.
No, we're starting with you. You got to give me your real...
Okay, so you ready for mine? All right, so I felt like the pacing was good. I liked how, we would go back and forth. I liked that there was a lot of, like, introduction to different things and different people. I liked Theo and hearing Theo's background. I mean, I don't like him as a person, but I liked his story. I also liked getting inside of Alicia's head, like knowing what was going on because she was silent. It was really, he did that well. I was confused at the end. There was parts of it that I was confused, and maybe it was that Greek I didn't even think about, like it being part of that, like Greek mythology, to where I was like, what does this mean?
Felt like I needed to go and do research on this myth.
You did, and this is what you're great at. And so you always bring in those like definitions, which does like, oh, I didn't think of it that way. And so being able to hear some of that does help. I think overall the book, I'd give it a 4.
Okay.
Yeah. I think the pacing was well. I did kind of suspect Theo, but had I not had some of the background, I think I would have been surprised. Yeah. All right. What about you?
I think you might be surprised. I'm not giving it a 5.
Wow.
I know. And I was going to go so far as a 3.9.
Wow.
I'm like in between a 3.9 and a 4.
I am shocked. And you are a generous. So really that's like, let's be like a 2.5. And like, because Jamie is a generous rater. And so.
Yeah. I was leaning more 3.9. Like it took a while to get there.
Yes.
I mean, you had to be patiently waiting through a lot of kind of confusing back and forth. I loved how it came together.
Yeah.
I mean, I felt bamboozled, but I felt like I was on the right track.
Right, yeah.
Like I knew something was wrong and I was confused about the timelines. And so then I felt really justified that everyone was confused about the timelines because he was not telling us.
Right.
And so I felt good about that. So I loved the big reveal. I think then at the end, it kind of all fell into place really, really fast.
Yes.
It was
didn't
like, this
follow
person's
his pace.
walking down this hallway, this person's
Right.
walking down the hallway. Maybe it's that person, maybe it's that person. Nope, that person's ruled out, that person's ruled out. It was actually him.
Right.
And I was just like, that felt a little whiplashy and frantic. So I don't know, like by the amount of notes and papers and like research that I had to do to like actually make sense of this book, it's not an easy read.
No, and I felt like there was a lot of it, like, there's different parts in it, right? Because there's like part 1, chapter 1, part 2, chapter 1, and it like resets through it. I felt like there was a lot of information that wasn't necessary to like follow the timeline, so I could see that.
Do you think that that was necessary and it could have just been chapters 1 through 50?
It could have been, but I also think he could have taken the end and followed the same pace. I felt like I didn't love, it felt almost like I need to finish this really quick. And so like me just get this done.
But maybe that's because the timelines, we were actually in like 3 separate timelines throughout all of this. And then it all compacted into one.
Right.
And so we were getting
that's
all
true.
of them squeezed into one timeline.
True.
Science. That's what I'm going to call it.
I mean, but so... Wow, I rated a book 0.1 higher than you.
Yeah.
I'm shocked. But, I mean, a 4. And it's like, all right, it's good. It was good. I'm glad that we, got a listener recommended. I can't wait to get more listener recommended books. But
No, this is still a high rating.
Yeah.
I mean, like 4 and 3.9 is nothing to slouch at.
That's right. And so it's good.
I love it.
Yeah.
Let's keep reading.
And keep ranting.
And remember, you're so approachable.
Okay, the episode is over. If you enjoyed it, could you give us a thumbs up or leave a review?
It goes a long way toward helping us grow and meet new people like you.
Subscribe to get notified when the next episode drops.
You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook to see what we're reading next, recommend new books, and join the conversation.
We're so excited to have you on board.